Welcome back. Welcome to another edition of Nain Shorts. Thank you for joining me today. Hope you've liked and subscribed. If not, please do so. Helps us out. And also share. Let your friends know that I have nothing positive to say about my own show right now. But you'll figure something out. So thank you. Today I wanted to talk about the idea of our own opinions on things, right? Most of our life we've grown up with the concept of right and wrong, and it's kind of a crapshoot when you talk to people about it, especially when they have different ideas or upbringings than what we did. So their right and our right don't seem to match, and oftentimes we get so caught up in what is right to us that anything outside of that is wrong. So it becomes a difficult conversation to be had. So for today, for this particular episode, we will substitute right and wrong for false and true. True and false, whichever direction you want to take it in. But the reason behind that is that we've been discussing this concept of what is true to somebody versus somebody else. How can we know whether what it is that they're doing is based on what they were told to do, or because they genuinely believe that this is what you should do? And how does that affect the way we go about our own training and even our own teaching? One of the biggest points for us in reference to teaching is knowing the student, one of the three major points. And knowing why they do something becomes a crucial part of it. But if we go into the route of right and wrong, it can get a little messy. So true and false, right? Actually, Rick, we could probably do this now. So, I know he doesn't look like much. You don't look very menacing is what I'm trying to get to. But those of you who know, yeah, he's a sweetheart. We'll put it that way. A saint. But he's the attacker in this situation. He's gonna attack me. I don't know what he's gonna do, and he throws a punch at me, right? And that's what I did. Now, for those of you watching, you can evaluate this, pause, whatever, think about it, rewind it, and tell yourself, is that true or is that false? Okay, that's the game that we're playing today.
And is that true as far as something that's valuable to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is a true statement that...
Like, this would be a true thing in the sense that, yeah, that was something good to do. It may not be exactly what you would do, but you understand enough of it to know, okay, I didn't get hit and I went straight into whatever I was going to do and take care of anything that could come afterwards, right? That's a true statement. I took care of the punch and the attacker. That, we've all seen and done certain things in reference to that. But now let's step away from what we know. Let's step away from what we understand and what we've trained. And another punch comes.
I missed.
Now, would you say that's true or false? And go ahead and pause the video if you need to. But for me, when I first saw this, that was a false thing to do, because why the hell would I do that? Why would I just duck and take my eyes completely off of the person in front of me and that's it? They're probably going to attack me again. Thank you, Rick. That was a great visual. So here we have these two situations. We have a true situation and a false situation based on what we understand from that attacker. Now, we're the ones being attacked. Now, we've all seen parrying and moving out of the way and reaching into it, kind of going straight for the attack. We've all seen and done certain variations. It may not be exactly your truth, and that's the point that we kind of came across, is that it's not necessarily completely your truth, but you see enough of it there, enough of the things that you would do to agree that, yeah, that's a viable thing to do. It may not be your way of doing it, but it is enough there to say, yeah, that's a true thing to do. But how many of you would go into what I call a standing fetal position? Now, everyone's been in a fetal position at one point in their lives, and some of us will probably not care to admit that we've been there way out of infancy. Now, the only person that's never been in a fetal position is Chuck Norris. He probably knocked out his doctor for trying to slap him, but we're not Chuck Norris. So we've all been in that position at one point, but when it comes to fighting or taking care of an attack, how many of us think to do that? So it's easy to say, no, that's a false thing to do. That wouldn't be viable, that wouldn't work. But if we step away from ourselves a little bit and think about, well, what about somebody who's completely untrained, who's never been in a fight, and who is just scared out of their mind because somebody just swung at them. And the very first thing they did was react. And that's what happened. While it may not be a truth to us, it is most certainly a truth to that particular person. Because that's what they did. That's all they knew to do. And that's the part of knowing the student and knowing what they know. So then we can start working on how do we bridge that gap? Well, first of all, we have to get them in through the door so they can start training with us. So we can start teaching them the things that we know to be true. But I think we have to be a little bit careful with that particular part of the lessons. And it's more of a feeling and the experience that I've had as an instructor, along with Rick, is that if that is their truth, how do we bridge the gap between our truth and theirs without forcing them to only see our truth? In other words, how careful do we have to be to make sure that we don't give things in such a way that leads them to believe that our way is the only way? Because they're going to interpret things their own, based on their own knowledge, based on their own experiences. So would it make more sense then to start adding things to what they already do and know to do that can get them a little closer, so then they can start seeing, okay, well, if I don't put my hand up, I'm going to get hit. Well, I don't believe it. Then they get hit. Oh shit, I really should put my hands up. And if we evaluate based on that, this movement of cowering down, well, there's some truth there that I think we could all agree on. One, not getting hit. That's a truth that I think all could agree on. Blocking your head, yet another truth that I think we've all done and do in certain instances, especially if we're being ambushed, attacked. Oh shit, we cover up. What we do afterwards then becomes very important. So if we take that particular scenario, we get the student into the school, we get them going, and we start adding little pieces. We start considering, okay, if this is their reaction, how do we change their thoughts on that particular reaction and make it a little better for them? We start showing them, okay, if you keep your eyes on your target, then it's easier for you to know what's happening. So instead of looking down as you do it, you just duck down, cover up, but you keep your eyes on the person that's attacking you. And you start a dialogue. What would be the best thing to do after that? Somebody who's untrained and doesn't want to get hurt will probably want to get away. That's the easiest thing to do. Or at least the easiest thought to have in that panic. Just run, get out. Which is not a bad thought. But that person is still willing and able to hurt you, so they can attack you still. They can run after you. So let's call running away creating space between you and the person attacking you. Now, what are other ways then you can start exploring that could create that space? What if when you duck, you push the person away? Well, that would create space. Now, is there a better way of doing that? Okay, now you start adding the other possibilities to it. Okay, if I'm here, what if I step in? and I raise my elbow up. Now I just hit them with my elbow, and in the moment I hit them with my elbow, I just push their head out of the way. And because I'm in such a panic, that push becomes a strike. Now, keep in mind, this is just this particular scenario. How do we take what we know, add it to what that person knows to be true, and enhance it? So then now they have a different way of doing things, which may not be your way of doing things. It may not be your truth. But now you've, one, shown them other possibilities and proven to them that, hey, this might be their new truth because of that information that you give them. And then you can start growing them. Because one of the things or the elements that would require them being able to do this particularly well would be their footwork. So then you show them the importance of that footwork and why your footwork will eventually help them do what they already know to be true even better. Hand movement, hand placement, all these things then become crucial. But the students have a clear understanding of what it is that they're working towards. That element of, oh, this is what I would use it for. So yeah, doing these foot exercises, these stance switching and all these other things that develop my balance, that develop my leg strength, that develop that speed, are going to be so important for me to be able to pull off this one thing that I know to do and to do it better. Learning the different blocks and positioning of my hands, learning proper striking, the length of my legs and the angle that we create with our bodies. All these things then become important for that individual. We give them a sense of understanding that, hey, I need all these things in order to accomplish this one thing that I thought was good to do, but now I realize, because of the teachings, it can be so much better. And just by looking at somebody else's truth and really understanding why it's true to that person. And even as students. Because I'll be the first to tell you, there was a time where I would look at something, and because, I don't know, maybe I didn't understand it very well, it was crap. So you kind of stop paying attention. You're like, oh yeah, you're respectful and all things like that, but you're not really taking anything in. But what if we took this same idea and started applying it to what we were seeing? Instead of looking at it as right and wrong, looking at it as, okay, that is their truth. Why is it their truth? Why are they so convinced that that is a good idea? And is there anything within that that I could then start using for myself or better understand, so then I know, okay, if this person was my student, I could guide them in this direction. Or if I had taken these classes, I would take that lesson and I would do this with it. Because ultimately, regardless of how well you can look at somebody else's truth, your truth is yours. You will do your things your way. But if we can take ourselves out of our heads, would we be able to teach a wider audience? Would we be able to retain those students that get to a certain level and maybe because they don't fully understand where they're going with it or what they would do with what you've given them thus far, all of a sudden have a renewed excitement to come back to class because they get to see it. They are developing their own truths. And I think as good instructors, that's one of our main objectives, is to get our students to see things for themselves. We prove it to them, we show it to them, and then we give them the space to allow them to develop their own ideas, their own way of seeing their truth. There are some things that you just can't get away of. Basics, repetition, totally needed. But what those things become, the clearer that idea is to that person, the harder they're probably going to work to getting to that point. The more they're going to want to come back and learn the next step. Because if they did one thing that you told them and it worked better, well, what if they did 2 things that you told them, 3 things, 4 things? What if they actually start studying the little in-betweens that you've talked about for years but has gone over their head? Or maybe as an instructor you realize, I'm missing something here. I'm trying way too hard to get this person to move like me, to see things the way I see them, but that's just not them. So what can I do now to get them a little closer to their truth? And hopefully they advance and they create their own way of doing things that is viable for them. Now let's take it a step further as it's just a mental exercise. Because we get to a certain point, we learn an entire curriculum of an art. Where do we go from there? Can we create something new? Many of the times, a lot of people will cross-train and will start implementing ideas or even moves and techniques from other arts and incorporating them into theirs. But what if we just took ourselves out of our own minds for a moment? Just like this example of something you would never do. What if you didn't know all the things that you knew? What if you truly had no training whatsoever? What if you were taller, shorter, older, injured, a child? How would that change the way that you would view someone attacking you? And how would it affect the way that you actually do something about it? And if we can start doing that as an exercise and incorporating little ideas, okay, I wouldn't do that, but I think this would really work for somebody this size, or I think it would really work for that person over there. All of a sudden we start creating these different things. Not new, because somewhere someone has already done it. There are systems that are based on the things that we just thought about, or the ideas that we've come up with on our own. But because now we're doing it for the sake of somebody else, maybe we're learning also how best to communicate with a variety of people. And ultimately, it's still your truth. You're just putting it under a different lens. And hopefully we get our students to create their own truth and then have them pass it on or do whatever it is that they feel necessary to do with it. But it's all in getting better. How do we get better and make the people around us improve along with us? So, true or false? Now you can look at this entire video and decide for yourself. Please leave a comment. Let us know how you get students to see more than what they originally thought and believe the things that they now see because of it. So, thank you very much for joining me on another one of Nain's shorts. To the next one. 3, 2, 1, cut!